Okay, we're going to be recording the presentations during the two presentations that are happening. So tonight there are two presentations. Will be the Introduction to Outdoor Leadership Skills, Outdoor Nuts and Bolts presentation. So basically, it's the very first presentation that you're getting about taking people into the outdoors, which is essentially what IOLS is all about. And then followed by that, Seth will be presenting on the menu planning and duty roster piece coming from as our quartermaster. So those recordings, when they're done, we're going to save them to our YouTube channel. And those will also have a link on the Takachsin-crc.org website under the libraries, and then there's a link for the interms, and you can actually see the agenda for the two meetings that we're going to have. You can see some links to documents, downloads, presentations, and such that will be happening during those meetings. So you can go there and get the link. We will also email the link out to anybody that didn't make it tonight, or if you want to look at the link, watch a part of the presentation again, you can see that as well. I have you all muted and you can't unmute yourself for the presentations. That way we can get through the presentations and sort of keep them clean and make them legible or audible for people to listen to. If you do have a question, please feel free to use the chat function. If you are joining from an iPhone, if you tap on your phone, I know that it will give you the options at the bottom. For everyone else, if you're on a desktop or laptop, those functions are at the bottom. And you can just use the chat piece and then type it in. You can either type it to me, I'm listed as Scoutmaster-Shannon Smith, or you can send it to everybody. I will try to keep an eye on that as I'm doing the first presentation in case you have one. And then as Seth is going, I can sit there and watch it and just let Seth know that there's a question. We will also have a audible Q&A session after each one of those sessions where I will allow you to unmute yourself if you do have a question, and we can get those answered for you at the end. The next Zoom meeting, so this is the first of two. The next one will be in 2 weeks. The date is still to be determined. Right now, I'm trying to figure out there's a camp out that's happening for one of my presenters, and so it'll either be Friday night like this one, or it'll be Sunday in the evening as well, depending on when I can get them in their coverage. For that one, there's going to be an interactive map and compass course teaching that's going to happen. We're going to be sending you a mailer that actually has inside of it a copy of a map, so you'll all be working on the same map, and a handout for how to use a compass. The map and the handout are also located on the interns library page so that you can download them yourself, but we have them for you in color so that you can use them for that course. And give me 1 second because someone texted me in Arabic and I want to see who it was. Let's just see. Okay. So if there are any questions, you can type them in again. And I think we're going to get started with the first presentation, which is the nuts and bolts of the outdoor program. Seth, I'm going to remove you. Actually, I'm going to actually not do that. I'm just going to share screen. And we're going to share this. The outdoors, the piece with that is a lot of people, I'm assuming most of you are all going into troops that are already well established, has well established leadership. And so you're going to just sort of dovetail in and you're going to learn how the troop works as you go through it, like as you experience it. There are some people, the unenviable ones, that end up in a situation where they're starting a brand new troop and may not necessarily have all the skills that they necessarily need. This course is sort of an introductory piece. It's going to work very well for those of you who lack the skills but are in those established troops. For anyone that's starting a brand new troop, this is an introductory course, the whole course, Introduction to Outdoor Leader Skills. So you're going to get a taste of everything, but you're not going to necessarily leave a college graduate in it. A lot of this is scoutcraft, But what we'll be covering here in this first course is literally just sort of what it takes to, to create the outdoor program in a very basic way and lead the kids through, lead your youth through it. The first page here has a quote from Robert Baden-Powell, who's the founder of Scouting. This comes from a different book, not his book that like the Scouting for Boys and what led to the Scouting movement, but one from Quick Training for War. And there's three pieces of this that I think are very important. Applying the common sense, the precedents and principles, and the piece in between it that I didn't underline, which just says no two situations are ever precisely the same. And the piece with taking youth outdoors and working with them, even if you were doing the same exact camp out in the same exact place at the same exact time of the year, you're never going to get two situations that are exactly the same, because either the ground conditions are going to change or the weather is going to change, or you're going to end up you're going to end up like with completely different leaders or completely different youth. And so every time you go into a situation, you have to sort of treat it as it's new. So applying your common sense, using your precedents and principles are going to get you through each one of those situations. If you were at the indoor course, you're going to know we did that section for the Scoutmaster role, and we did the be, know, do. And in the same way, when you look at a successful outdoor program, there's the bees, the knows, and the do's. And when you're looking at the bees, you're really thinking like, what is this program? And so you can look at the program in two ways, right? You can look at it from the macro, what's our entire scouting program for the entire year, or you can look at it in the micro, what's their program for April. And so the B in here is sort of like, what is that you want to be? So if you're looking at it in the macro and you're in that PLC annual planning meeting that we had discussed in the indoor, you're going to be sitting there talking about like, is every event going to be skills based? Or does one of the events need to be more conservation? Or is one of them sort of a big adventure? Or, however your troop has decided to set those up, you want to sit there and look at whatever all of those activities are and sort of identify like, December is going to be the month that we're going to do this. In my troop, December tends to be the one where we try to knock out an outdoor merit badge like wilderness survival or pioneering. So it sort of has its own, there's a variety of stuff, but it also sort of has this is what that event is supposed to be. It should be utilizing teamwork across your troop leadership. So you have your senior patrol leader, you have your positions of responsibility, your quartermaster who needs to get the equipment, some grub masters in the patrols. There's jobs that need to be done, and so you should be utilizing teamwork with the youth. Again, scout-led and planning. I already mentioned the PLC. That's where these are coming from. And they should be challenging. And of course, you should try to do monthly. I know that there's some troops that don't do monthly activities. Monthly activities are ideal for your troop. And of course, it should always be fun. The no, we're going to spend a lot of time tonight talking about the no, because the B is sort of like a kid stuff. The know is sort of the things that you need to know to go out into the woods. And those really come into three different categories: safety, skills, which you'll also hear called scoutcraft, and scouting principles. And so we're going to talk a lot about those three principles tonight. And then the do is sort of like the expectation of what you're trying to get out of your program. And so the do's really go towards the aims, right? If you remember, there are the four aims of scouting: character development, leadership development, physical fitness, and citizenship training. And so when you look at the do's, you're like looking at build character, build positive relationships, provide opportunities for young leaders, build common bonds through shared experiences. There are times that these kids are going to hike 10 miles in a rainy weekend, and it is horrible while it's happening, but they will talk about it in glorious terms months later. Like, remember when we went through that hike and it was just raining all the time and our boots were wet and da 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 da. Those shared experiences are really building their patrols and making them closer and closer together. And then, of course, you need to allow them to test themselves in a safe environment. Again, safety is in that no piece. We'll talk about that. But I had mentioned on the indoor course about, allowing scouts to tow up to the edge of the cliff far enough, but when they start to topple over, that's where, as you, an adult leader, are supposed to be there to be pulling them back. And so the kinds of bees that you create, the events that you're creating, need to also give them some time to sort of expand and grow and have a little bit of adventure, or be able to do some things where they might fail in a safe environment where they won't get hurt. So there are 6 parts of planning an outdoor program. And building a program, I just mentioned annual planning. So you can build the annual plan and sit there again, what are you putting into there? Service projects, high adventure day hikes, all kinds of different activities that you can throw into there. And then once you build the annual plan, you can also again take this into the micro and go, okay, we now know what April is going to be. And so now we're going to build that program. We have the rough idea. As we get down through that, you're going to get the site for it, whatever, but you're going to now go ahead and do that. Establishing a purpose. So why are we going out and doing what we're doing? And the purpose could just be pure adventure or fun. But sometimes, through creating that varied program, you're going to want to sit there and go, how can I get some advancement out of this? And of course, most of these you can. There's the cooking advancements that the kids need to go through when they're in tenderfoot, second class, first class. But you might actually be looking at a full big project. I know at one point in time, my troop did a camp out slash Eagle project kind of piece. It sort of fell apart in itself at one point in time, but the plan was to sit there and go out and camp, do this Eagle project that was a service project. So, there's different things that you can do in that purpose. And so by defining the purpose, it's going to help you actually um, make a better program. Then again, there's selecting a site that fits the purpose. And of course, that sometimes is event driven. If you're going to want to go swimming, you're going to need a place that's going to have swimming capabilities. I put in there as event driven. You might sit there and say, we're going to go to the Camporee or we're going to go to the Klondike. And so those are the kinds of, then it's like, okay, well, the Klondike's going to be happening at Mattatuck. And so at Mattatuck, I want to either camp in a tent site or I want to camp in a cabin. So, you're doing that. It needs to fit your group size. Again, cabins, there's some smaller cabins and larger troops that will never fit in them. So you have to look at the availability of that. You might need to be looking at permits. There might be places that you go like state parks. And so you're going to need to be able to get a permit to camp in those things. And that's like the normal camping piece. And then I also put in there outdoor ethics. If you're taking your troop out and you're going to go to this place, are you going to harm that place, or is that place designed to be handling what the activities that you're wanting to do? And then, of course, number 4, we'll talk a lot. Safety guidelines. Of course, youth protection, YPT is in there. The ones that have the asterisks, YPT and hazardous weather and the guide to safe scouting, those are things that you can't get past. YPT, you all know that you have to have it to actually be an adult leader, a registered adult leader. And that the minute, if you don't keep it active, your adult leader status will end until you get it corrected. And with YPT, when you're taking the kids out, you need to be remembering the 2 deep leadership rules, the tenning guidelines that the youth need to be within 2 years of each other if they're sharing a tent. The only caveat on that is that brothers or sisters, brother, sister can share a tent with each other beyond 2 years. If they're not related, they cannot. You need to be thinking about accommodations. I just heard at summer camp this past year, the shower houses. Now that there are females in the program, there's guidelines on how to handle showers and things like that. And part of that is putting up can't think of the word, putting up a usage, like when the girls are going to be using it, when the boys can use it. And so boys haven't been used to that. So the boys were going in while the girls were in the shower house. Well, it was their time. And so there was a lot of complaint coming in there that, the boys aren't actually respecting the girls' time at the shower house. So you need to be looking at the accommodations for your troop. If you're bringing out a hybrid boys and girls troop to an event, or females and males to the same event, you need to make sure that you are looking at the accommodations and that they can take care of both having both genders. And then, of course, there's privacy and bullying that are part of YPT. Hazardous weather, we'll talk about a little bit more. Guide to safe scouting, we're going to talk about a little bit more. We'll touch briefly on trek safely, safe swim defense, safety afloat, climb on safely, first aid and CPR. All of those are trainings that are available either online or in person. And then proper gear. You need to be looking at your kids and going, do they have the proper gear for that event? Are we going to go boating? Do they all have, life jackets that are actually BSA approved and fit the kid, right? So you're always going to want to make sure that you're looking at the physical or the proper gear. And then physical arrangements, and part of that is, transportation, making sure, you have the vehicles to get the youth to where you need to be, that, that the transportation's within the guidelines of the BSA, gear, quartermaster. So that's Seth here. You'd be looking at your quartermaster and going, hey, do they have, do you have everything that we need for this? Or does the troop need to go out and purchase some things to make that event happen? Again, menus and duty roster, we'll be talking about that here next. You need to think about the procurement and the safe handling of food, especially what the kids are taking out with them, what they can maybe cook or prepare ahead of time, so that you're as safe and trying to keep kids from foodborne illnesses as best possible. You definitely have to have your required leadership. We all know Too Deep, but when you think of required leadership for an outing, you also might think about skills too. What is going to be happening on it? And do I have the leaders that I need to be able to sit there and make that happen? And then permission slips and medical forms. So troops usually, summertime or summer camp will gather all the med forms for the year and then keep doing that and keep them. That's a good time to get it, but you should make sure that you have the med forms, that there's a designated person that has the med forms on those outings. And I don't know if you are all using it, but there is a permission slip functionality in Scoutbook on the events that you can sit there and say permission slip, and then you can print out your, it's only for the youth, but you can print out the permission slip for the youth and then sign away, and then the troop will actually have a valid permission slip listed with the parent signature on it. And then, of course, I already mentioned facilities usage for mixed genders. So something to be thinking about when you're looking there. And then, of course, the patrol method. You always want to be sitting there using the patrol method. You want this to be a youth-led piece. Where the adults come in is you can sit there. There's three little pieces: mentor the leadership team, provide for safety, and allow for failure. And those are the three most important things that you can possibly do for the youth of your program. So again, we're back to this be, no, do, and again, under this middle section, this is really you. Be, again, comes back to your patrol, the patrol method, your PLC. They're going to really put together the sort of bones of your program. The do is what you're going to expect to get out of the program as it's executed. So the no is where you come in, the safety, the skills, the scouting principles. Those are the things that you need to have under your fingertips, ready and prepared to teach to the other kids, or to the kids in your program, so that they're starting to pick it up and learn it. One of the things that I will tell you as a caveat, and I think I mentioned this in the indoor program, we're going to talk a lot about the Guide of Safe Scouting here. There's a lot of stuff in there dealing with program and what kids can and can't do as part of a program, even depending upon age group. I would tell you, don't put the cart before the horse when the PLC is doing the annual planning, because the problem of it is if you sit there and say, look at this, it could be overwhelming to the youth, and then they're going to say, well, we can't do anything. And so realistically, I would sit there and say, let them sort of dream up the world, and then take what they've come up with, and then take the Guide to Safe Scouting and start to try to make them work together. and try to figure out the solution to the program that they want to do based upon what we can do in scouting, right? I think that if you throw that guide to safe scouting out there first, it will just kill their enthusiasm. So let them do their thing and then you do your thing, the no thing, right? So let's get into what you need to know. And I said guide to safe scouting. So the first thing that we get with this is the SAFE checklist. And so the BSA loves acronyms, and this is another one of those. The top, it says Scouts and their parents expect all Boy Scouts of America activities to be conducted safely. To ensure the safety of participants, the Boy Scouts of America expects leaders to use the 4 points of SAFE when delivering the scouting program. That's supervision, assessment, fitness and skill, and equipment and environment. And I took this as a screenshot from the BSA website on safety. That BSA website is listed on the takachsin-crc.org website, library, the interns. So you can go and you can see all of this stuff in full. I'm not gonna break out on all of this. But there are a couple things that I did that you can't see on here that I think is important to pull out. So kudos to all of you, because one of the things under supervision, one of the points is ensuring that that adults are adequately trained. And so by being part of this course, you are meeting the requirements for that adequately trained. Under assessment, predetermining what guidance and standards are typically applied to the activity. That's where this whole SAFE and the BSA's SAFE website comes in, and the Guide to Safe Scouting comes in. You can take your program and go, okay, now that we know what it is supposed to be, let's look at the Guide to Safe Scouting and see if we have any hiccups with it, right? And then there's the other part, the flip side of the coin, validating the activity is age appropriate for the Boy Scouts of America program level. And I'll show you a screenshot a little bit further down in here of a guide that the BSA has put together that makes that a lot easier to be able to do. So supervision, assessment, fitness and skill. Of course, you're going to know fitness and skill by reviewing their annual physical forms. So that's where you would be getting that. And then equipment and environment, that's something you would want to continue to be looking at. Like, how is the equipment of our troop? Is it really, is it meeting the needs that we have today, or does it need to be updated for the program that the kids want to do? Is it, do we have everything that we need? So that's the kind of stuff. A lot of this is plan, right? You just have to be planning ahead of these things to make sure that they're happening. So I am not going to read all of this. This is the Scouter Code of Conduct. So basically, by signing up as an adult leader, you have basically sat there and said, I agree with this and I will uphold it. Some of the things of this, again, from the very first slide, talking about common sense, no alcohol or illegal drug use, no pornography. Those are things that you're going to be like, oh, yeah, it just makes sense. You wouldn't do that in scouting. Some of it is not. So again, we just introduced SAFE. I don't know if a lot of you even knew that existed, but there is a piece in here that says, in requirement 3, I'll be familiar with and follow BSA youth protection policies and guidelines, including mandatory reporting, the Guide to Safe Scouting, and SAFE checklist. So you are already sitting there saying, I agree with that. There's another thing down here just to point out, like, in number 5, the second point is advocacy on social and political issues, including prohibited use of the BSA uniform and brand. There are times where, like, someone might invite you to come to a political rally or a fundraiser or something. Scouts, and I'd have to go back and look at it again because I have not been asked, but the last time I looked at it, the guidelines were basically, you can come and you can run a flag ceremony, and then you have to leave. You cannot stay. If you do want to stay, you need to take off the scout uniform and be in street clothes, because the Scouts is a nonpartisan organization. So that's, some of this is common sense. Some of this is stuff that you have to actually read and know. So definitely it's well worth, when you're asking for any event, run it by these websites and sit there and go, is there anything that we shouldn't be doing before I do it? This, by the way, you can get out of the Guide to Safe Scouting. That is a link that will take you directly there. So you can read this in all of its glory for yourself and make sure that you're familiar with it so that you yourself aren't actually going to violate any of it. So the Guide to Safe Scouting in itself, point number two, and the reason why I can't bring it in here is because it's voluminous. There's a lot of information in there. So it addresses requirements for conducting a wide variety of scouting activities, including training, insurance, transportation, risk reduction, incident reporting, and then I put in all capital letters prohibited activities. So there's certain activities that I mentioned earlier that have a time frame to it, and then there's certain activities that are just no. You do not want to be engaging in activities that are no. And they might not necessarily seem logical. And I know troops that have actually violated the prohibited activities piece because I've seen them post Facebook posts of them doing it. Like one of them is paintball shooting. They took their kids to a paintball shooting thing. That's a prohibited activity. Scouts are not allowed to shoot at each other. And so the reason why you need to know about the prohibited activities is you want to make sure that you never violate the prohibited activities, because when you violate them, it's the phrase in legal is ignorance of the law is not a defense against the law. Ignorance of the prohibited activities will not save you from trouble. And that trouble can come from not being covered under BSA insurance if someone gets hurt. That could come from you getting kicked out of scouting permanently. You don't know what it is. And so definitely make yourself very aware of prohibited activities. The very first one, online versus download, and then I have February 2022 in there. The Guide to Safe Scouting has a downloadable feature. You can go in there and download it so that you can have a copy of yourself in PDF. But the download is only, and they say it at that on the website, it's only updated through February of 2022. So anything that's happened from there on until today is only available in the online. So if you're going to use the download version, be careful, because there might be things that have changed. There have been big things that have changed, such as now everyone going on a campout has to be a registered leader with a background check. So that's something that would not be in the download form, but would be online. And then I put down here the quick guide for age appropriate activities. I mentioned that. So you have prohibited and then age guidelines. I'll show you a quick screenshot of that here in a second. And then the last point is, regardless of if traditional outing or new, the guide needs to be reviewed and followed. Again, like I said, things change. So even though you've done this outing, on an annual basis or every other year, you might want to go back and just check it to make sure that you are still within the letter of the BSA guidelines. Because again, things can change and you don't want to be caught with your pants down on something like that, especially if something gets hurt and you have to fill out an incident report. By the way, incident reports are a part of that. That's something that I would get familiar with. And so this is a guide to safe scouting, age appropriate guidelines. This is a screenshot of it. And you can see across the top, the whole program piece. So it starts with lions in kindergarten, goes to your tigers at first grade, then your wolf bear at second, third grade, then your fourth, fifth graders and Webelos. Then you get to the full Scouts BSA program. And then this last category is sort of a throw in of 13 or 14-year-old kids. There's that, if you were in the Webelos program and like they could cross over at 10 if they finished fifth grade, or 11, it's the same thing. 13 and having finished eighth grade, or 14 gets them into that older Scouts BSA category. And so, you can see it's usually like it's working itself from right to left. So most everything that's going to be on the list, this category is going to be able to do, unless you get like, once we get down to power tools, there's a point down here that's like adults only, like, this power tools, chainsaw, log splitters, wood chippers, power saws, adult use only. So there's no check marks, but for the most part, everything's going to be checked down here. But you can see, like, older Scouts can go on a search and rescue mission, but they can't go on all scouts can go on a search and rescue practice. So basically, your younger scouts, if you actually were going out on a mission, the older scouts could do it. Your 11 and 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds that haven't finished 8th grade could not. So that's one of those pieces that you want to go in and look at. I have I actually printed it out here. So these main categories, you see outdoor skills, tools. There's a category for trekking, a category for shooting, a category for camping, for vehicles, for coping climbing, and for aquatics. So if your event is going to have any of those kinds of activities in them, do check this out. I remember as a Cub leader, I was the committee chair, and I had the Cub master that wanted to go take the kids and have do a rope course. And we were like, great idea, but no, because this told us what those kids could do at the ages that we had them. And for the most part, that was bouldering up to the height of their shoulders. There is another piece that they can do in that climbing area, but what he wanted to do would have violated the Guide to Safe Scouting. So along with safety, there's a bunch of safety trainings. Again, first aid and CPR. I will sit there and say, those are not Boy Scout trainings. Those are just trainings that you would get out in the world. You can get them. There are times that they are available through scouting programs, but the first aid and CPR training that you're going to get would be the same as going to the Red Cross trainings. I'm going to put a plug in for Camp Workomen. In June, I believe it's in June, there is a wilderness first aid training course. I remember my scoutmaster a number of years ago was looking at one that he was going to take outside of scouting, and that was like $700, $800. This course is nowhere near that in cost. So it is a very affordable cost. If it's something that you're interested in, you might want to check that out on the Camp Workomen webpage or on the training calendar at the Connecticut Rivers Council. Very valuable training. I know Nathan Meyer, who is my current scoutmaster, took the Workomen one last year. He is on staff, and you can ask him about it and what he got out of it when you see him in person on the outdoor course. So there are some other online trainings that you can also do. Trek safely, safe swim defense, safety afloat. I put these in here. Basically, the Trek safely, there's like a pamphlet out there, and I don't necessarily know. I don't think that we've saved it because you can pull again all this off of the BSA safety site. Um, oh, Evelyn just shared the flyer to everyone, by the way. Thank you, Evelyn, for the wilderness survival or the wilderness first aid course that I brought up. So for Trek safely, I tried to put some color coding to things that were shared across it. So definitely plan ahead. And planning, it's a no-brainer. You should always be planning. Before you're doing anything, you should be planning it out. Trek safely, again, proper equipment, and then we get into the personal fitness, discipline, and qualified supervision. You guys would be the qualified supervisors, but it's always really good to look at these different programs and sit there and go, what is a qualified supervisor for that program? For safe swim defense, a couple years ago, I took a course at Camp Matatuck during the week that I was camping with the troop for adults. Was a adult leader swim. I can't even remember what the actual title of it all was, but basically that created or that made the group of us that took it qualified supervisors for a safe swim area. For all of you that were scouts, this is where the BALS PDQ comes in. Again, I said the Boy Scouts love acronyms. So buddy system, ability group, lifeguard, lookout, safe swim area, personal fitness, discipline, qualified supervisor. That all comes to BALS PDQ. Safety afloat, very similar to the safe swim defense, but you're gonna, instead of lifeguards, you're now to life jackets, lookout. No longer are you having someone watching you. You have to have some skills proficiency ahead to make it happen. And then again, planning. And then proper equipment in here. Proper equipment in this point is not just making sure that you have canoes or rowboats or whatever it is, but that they're in good shape and good condition. The oars are in good condition. The life jackets are in good condition. So you want to sit there and go through these programs, make sure that you're crossing the T's and dotting the I's with them when you go out and do one of these types of programs. And then I put this one on its own because this one again is an actual required training. I don't know if you have taken this training. We would like everyone to be able to take this between now and coming to the outdoor course if you haven't, because of the three trainings that you need to be considered a trained leader in the BSA as a scoutmaster or as an assistant scoutmaster, is you have to have scoutmaster specific training, which was the first course that we did, the IOLS training, which is the outdoor course that we're coming up on, and this hazardous weather training. And so by having, if you took the first course or you've taken it online, you've already gotten 1/3 of it done. We will get you through the IOLS on this course, and then having that hazardous weather training will make sure that you have the trifecta and you have everything you need to be considered trained. So definitely, this is online. We will send out. You'll get an email. The email that has the link to the recording will also have how to go in, because you want to make sure that you also do this under your BSA ID, or it's going to be a big headache for your committee chair or your scoutmaster to get it underneath your BSA ID. So you'd go through your My Scouting portal, and we'll show you how to do that if you haven't already taken it. But literally, this is the sort of the control panel. At least it was the last time I took it, of what you're going to cover in it. So each one of these is sort of a segment. Of course, number one is planning. We just keep talking about planning, but planning there. Number two, you're looking at lightning and thunderstorms. Number three, cold weather and snow. Number four here is hot weather. Number five, that's hail. Number six is flash floods. Number seven, tornadoes. Eight is windstorms. Nine is torrential rains, and 10 hurricanes. So you'll have to work through all of those. Some of those are more appropriate for New England than others. But then again, we all just lived through an earthquake, so you never know what you're going to get. And then here's the last piece that we're going to talk about: safety, the first S. Get your scouts involved in safety planning. So they need to sit there and also realize that there's guidelines and stuff that need to be followed. And so when they come up with that magical plan of hang gliding, and you're like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen, and this is why, you can start introducing them to, there are rules and regulations, things we can and can't do. Sometimes I'm going to ask you to step back just because we can't be doing that. Discuss the prime risks and mitigation as part of the outing. So discuss it ahead of time. What's going to happen on this, and what could possibly happen that is a safety issue. And then prior to, before you start heading out, oops, sorry, it clicked. Prior to heading out, remind them of that conversation and what some of the problems that can happen are. And then have everyone acknowledge the expectations for behavior. And if you do have behavior problems regularly, you might think about behavior contracts. And when those behavior contracts fail, that's when unacceptable behavior has to be taken care of. These two pieces, we never really want this to happen, but this is something that we might have to happen. Scouts that present a danger to themselves or others require immediate action, and they need to go home. They may need to go home. I know in my own troop, I was not on this outing, but I was part of the discussion that happened after it. But we had a youth, and I don't know what his diagnosis was, but he did have a behavioral diagnosis. And they were at the boathouse at Wacomin during a very cold, it was either January or February weekend. And when I mean cold, the wind chill had it to a point that everyone was told 20 minutes is the most that you could possibly be outside. And so the kid had saw some people out ice fishing, and he's an avid fisher, and that was not part of the program for the weekend, but he got really caught up in, I want to fish, I want to fish, I want to fish, to a point that he decided that he was going to go outside and he was not going to come back into the cabin. And the leaders went out with him and had a countdown, because they're like, if 20 minutes is the longest we can be out, at 20 minutes, we either have coaxed him back into the cabin or we have to do something. And 20 minutes came and went, and they had to pick him up, and he obviously fought them on it. and they had to bring him into the cabin. At which point, then the kid grabbed a mini metal and wood shovel that they'd had for getting coals up or whatever out of a campfire ring. And he was swinging that around at the leaders and at any of the kids who were all like trying to get as far away. It was a huge problem. Um, and obviously, he did have to go home because he couldn't, once he had gone that far down the path, he wasn't coming back, for that camp out. And we knew that from his behavior. Like he was just too riled up at that point in time to be able to settle down and come back into a state of normality. Um, so his mom was called and she came out and got him. And then, of course, we had to sit there and have a discussion on this because there was just so many things that happened. The adult leaders basically had manhandled this youth. So the first thing that they did after the mom left was call the camp master for it and say, "Hey, FYI, we just had to do this. We had to put in an incident report so that it was with the council." There was a parent that was like, "I really don't want to do an incident report because he might get thrown out of scouting because of it." And I was like, yeah, but if he does it again, every kid went home and told their parents, and then it's going to be on us, right? So there are times where the behavior may be unacceptable, and you're going to have to sit there and figure that out. Again, you're trying to rely on common sense, hopefully, some kind of precedent or some kind of, program or plan that you have in action. So they don't happen often, but when they do, they tend to be doozies. So watch for unacceptable behavior. Skills. That's the second or the second S that we had, skills and scoutcraft. So as you can see, you are here. So this is the course that talks about scoutcraft skills. So your compass work, your lashings, the fire building, woods tools, the kinds of stuff that, when you go through the tenderfoot second class, first class ranks and you look at the rank requirements, a lot of these pieces that are outdoor skill-based pieces are the pieces that we are going to be introducing you to in IOLS, plus a little bit more. Again, it's an introduction, so no one, if you aren't really great at, map and compass, you're not going to leave a college educated map and compass user. You're going to get the basic skills of it, and you're going to have to take it the next step further. Hopefully, we will present it in a way that you will find it to be uh, as exciting enough to actually take it further. So definitely, you're on the right place to start getting that. The Scout Handbook, borrow your Scout's handbook, and every one of them probably has one, and go in and look at it. So if fire building is what you want to look at it. Compass work is look at it. There's tons of information in those Scout handbooks, and I can tell you pretty much if you don't read it, no one's probably going to read it because most of those kids won't even crack those things open. So definitely use it. There's scouting websites. There's other how-to websites. The scouting websites, there's like a Scouter, like for adult leaders. There's now Scouts Life. It used to be Boys Life, that they have an online presence, and you can get a lot of great information from those. And then I put the other how-to websites, but make sure when you're looking at those methods, they are scouting okay. There are some things that I've been interested in the past, like making little alcohol burners out of soda cans. Those are not Scout BSA approved. You can't be making your own like little cooking stoves, or the liquid alcohol used in it is actually a prohibited fuel. So you need to make sure that even though you might be crafty and you like the outdoors, if you're using some of these methods for things, just make sure that they are, again, Guide to Safe Scouting, go look at it, and it'll let you know whether you can bring that into the Scout world or not. And then, of course, other Scouters. And so I tell you that we can only give you an introduction to Scoutcraft skills, but what I can really give you are 25 really great Scouters that you can get to know and put in your back pocket if you need help. And so that's what the staff's here for. You got 25 people that love training. So while you're dealing with us over the weekend in our hijinks, definitely, get to know some names, some faces, introduce yourself, so that you can actually have those kinds of connections outside of that weekend. You can see us at round tables, camporees, Klondikes. And if you know us enough, you can reach out and we'd be willing to help you in program or with skills that you want to sharpen. And then the third S that I had was scouting principles. And of course, the oath and law always applies. So I'm not putting that in there. We have that. But I call this one the outdoor trinity. So as the kids are going through tenderfoot, scout, tenderfoot, first class, and second class, they have to basically touch upon all of these principles that are out there. So the leave no trace principles are the ones that get the most face time. So talk about them a lot. I will and I can show you once we go out of the presentation, I can show you. I taught my Cub Scout pack a hand visual to remember all 7 of these principles in Leave No Trace. And the Cub Scouts now know these better than my Boy Scouts know in the troop. Because the hand symbols do it. And I had one mother, I taught him, she was a kindergartner, so I taught her it last year. She's now first grade. And over the summer, when we came back in the fall, the mom let me know that they went on a hike with some family friends with other kids. And before they started, this almost first grader was basically telling all the other kids, now there's rules and these are the rules. And she like did her little hand symbols and everything to teach them. So it's a very effective way of learning this one. Tread lightly doesn't get as much traction, I guess, if we're talking tread. When you look at all of these. But the reason being is that tread lightly really has more to do with, like, you can see like a 4-wheeler here. So it has more to do with taking like vehicles out, dirt bikes, 4-wheelers, things like that are out into the wilderness. So you have travel and recreate with minimal impact, respect the environment and others, educate yourself, plan and prepare, allow for future use of the outdoors, discover the rewards of being responsible. Very simple piece. A lot of these you can find in the Leave No Trace principles, just sort of put out there in a different way. And then the last one is the outdoor code. I find this one is the biggest stumbling block for many kids that are trying to get their scout rank, because a lot of the kids are coming up and they learn the knots and they learn the pieces of the first class badge and all these things as Webelos and arrow lights, and then they get into the program. And one of the things that they weren't really hit with heavily was the outdoor code. We implemented this with the Scout Oath and Law at the beginning of our troop meetings, and it doesn't add that much time to it, but it is well worth getting it out there. To be honest, if you could get the youth in your program to remember the Leave No Trace principles and the outdoor code, 2 of the 3, you're probably doing really, really well. And again, the outdoor code, it's all about the 4 C's: clean in my outdoor manners, careful with fire, considerate the outdoors, and conservation minded. So the do's and the don'ts. So you got the do's or the don'ts first. Don't ever panic, right? Don't panic ever, and ever, because when you start to panic, they will start to panic. And so you always need to be calm and cool in every situation. Remember your training. One of the pieces that get taught through merit badges and through programs, stop. Like if you get lost, stop. So if you're ever sort of in a panic piece, use that piece, the stop, another acronym, right? Stop. So the first S is for stop or sit, right? Just stop for a moment. T is for think, the O is for observe, and P is for plan. So if you're getting into a situation where you're starting to feel uneasy, stop and go through those actions, because that's going to just help you to focus and get right to where you need to be in the right headspace to be able to deal with what's happening. Don't go it alone, which you can't because you need to be too deep, but engage your fellow adult leaders to help with outings. And then again, know the weather forecast before you go. Then, as we've been saying over and over, plan, and do your best. And then one last thing, I'm not going to read all of this, but transportation. Your outings always start when the kids leave to go there. And so if you're doing it in groups, you need to really take a time, go into the Guide to Safe Scouting, look at that transportation piece. I will just hit these things. Drivers and their vehicles need to be in top condition. So the brake job's done, oil's changed, there's not going to be any problems. A no-brainer when you're transporting other people's kids, obey all the traffic laws. Do not be driving 100 miles an hour while you're trying to get to the campsite faster than everyone else. Have a current license, registration, and insurance for all drivers and vehicles. Drive time is an important part of the plan, and check the trailer. If you have a trailer, check the trailer so that you're not, stuck on the side of the road for hours. And so there's just some resources. And I said, like in person, I've already mentioned roundtables, outdoor events. Another one, there's University of Scouting, which happened back in March. It happens annually. You can look for it. And then I put on here outdoorsy parents. They're really good. And if they are outdoorsy and they are not a registered leader right now, you might want to talk to them. And then, of course, literature. There's the Troop Leader Guidebook, Program and Features Guidebook, a Scout Handbook and Field Book, scouts.org, Scout Shop. This Program and Features Guidebook, if you don't have it, I believe it's a 3-volume book that has tons and tons and tons of program in it. And you can sit there and go, okay, first aid, and it will lay out a bunch of different meetings for you for first aid or map and compass or whatever. So you could use that as a skill building program if you feel like skills need to be beefed up in your troop. And so that is all I have, which means I can stop share. And I'm going to move a couple things here. Participants. Okay, you now can all actually unmute yourself if there are any questions. Are you all awake? Yes. I see some eyes. Okay. If there are no questions, well, wait a minute. There was one.
Well, transferring the totems.
Yes. I have asked the troop guides to start working with you guys to try to figure out the first transfer. So basically, there should be a transfer around this time, and there should be another transfer around the next meeting. And I will leave that to the troop guides and the people who have them and the people who are going to be getting them to figure that out. Because obviously if I set a date, not everyone's going to be able to do it. So we need to be able to allow you to work within your guys' bandwidth of what you can do. So definitely work with your troop guides and your patrol leaders to sit there and figure that date out. But I did ask, I put that request out, and then another one again in 2 weeks should happen. And then we will do, because there's 4 of you, so each one of you will see something. You got it. You'll get another one. You'll get another one. So one patrol of you will see all 3 items. 3 of you will not. You'll only see 2 of the 3. And so what will happen is you will get the 3rd item Friday night of the IOLS course, and then you will be able to sit there and do your magic sometime between then and when we collect it. Did that answer that question? The best that I could? Yeah. Seth, are you ready? Okay, I'm going to remove myself, mute myself.
How's everybody doing tonight? Good. All right. Are you guys ready to be blown away?
Seth, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. Am I still?
No, you're good.
Okay. All right. Can I get back to my share? Okay. So first off, I wanted to explain the role of the quartermaster. think it's one of those things that's interesting. I didn't really know about it before I got into it. Our troop has a quartermaster, but they don't do all of the things that a quartermaster does. So just to go over it quickly. So the quartermaster is not just a fancy title, it's a pivotal role responsible for managing troop equipment and supplies. Think of it as a logistical backbone, ensuring the troop functions smoothly during camps, hikes, and activities. You know, once you get working with your troop, if you're not already, you're going to realize the importance of planning. And planning is the cornerstone of effective troop management. It's the difference between chaos and cohesion. I wrote this as a speech, and then today I figured Shannon was going to have this big PowerPoint, so I was like, I better make some slides quick. So I put it all together. So if it's a little choppy, I apologize, but meticulous planning ensures you have the right gear at the right time, maximizing safety, enjoyment for everyone. Setting up a duty roster. Duty rosters are like the blueprint for troop operations. They allocate responsibilities fairly and ensure everyone contributes to the success of the troop. When creating a duty roster, consider each scout's strengths and interests. This not only fosters personal growth, but it also boosts morale and camaraderie. These are some tips I put together. Communication is key. Clearly outline responsibilities, expectations to avoid confusion. Flexibility is also crucial. Things don't always go according to plan, so be prepared to adapt on the fly. And encourage teamwork. Emphasize the importance of working together to achieve common goals. Lead by example. As a quartermaster, dedication and diligence set the standard for others to follow. Okay, the impact of a well-planned duty roster. A well-executed duty roster promotes efficiency, responsibility, and accountability within the troop. It fosters a sense of ownership, pride among the scouts, empowering them to take an active role in troop operations. Ultimately, it contributes to the overall success and sustainability of the troop. In conclusion of the duty roster, the role of the quartermaster planning and setting the duty roster is pivotal to the success of any Boy Scouts troop. By embracing the principles of planning, communication, and teamwork, you can ensure your troop operates smoothly and achieves its full potential. Thanks for your attention. Let's continue to uphold the values of scouting endeavors. This is supposed to be my ending slide, but now it's not. So we'll go on to meal planning. What is the scout meal plan? The plan is a list of meals, snacks that will be eaten during the camp out. This includes breakfast, lunch, dinner snacks. To create a meal plan, you should consider the group size, dietary preferences, and trip duration. This will ensure you have sufficient food for every single scout coming along. The camping meal should include meals and snacks that are nutritious, simple to pack and transport. Nutrient and energy-rich foods are a great way to quickly and easily fill bellies of hungry campers. That's why protein and veggies are key to successful camp meals. By creating a camping meal plan, scouts exhibit thriftiness and preparedness. This ensures the meals will be chosen will be straightforward to prepare and agreed upon by all scouts who are eating, which is usually something that we in our troop have a problem with, because the kids plan it and then they fight about it when they get on the camp out. So it's always a fun time. And above all else, get creative and have fun. That's one of the things I can't stress enough, because during the camp outs, more often than not, the kids will always want to do the least, creative thing. They'll always want to do grilled cheese. Though one time they wanted to do just bring Pop-Tarts, and me and the other leaders were joking that that's not very scout-like. You're not really creating anything, and we weren't hiking, so it wasn't a convenience factor either. It was just being lazy. So we always try to push our scouts to do things that are a little outside the box, things they might not to get to do at home, you know, things that, involve teamwork and make them all work together. You know, makes them, more interested in it overall as well. Make it easy and healthy. An easy way to plan your meals when you're doing it is to use something like My Plate. So, the kids, this is easy for the kids to understand because it's been adopted for quite a while. You could make sure they know they have fruit, grains, vegetables, proteins, and then, sometimes dairy if it's necessary. My Plate is just a visual guide developed by the USDA to help people make healthier food choices. It would replace the food pyramid back in 2011. And I believe it's on its way out too, but it's probably going to take 10 years for that to happen as well. My Plate provides a typical plate broken into 4 sections: fruit, vegetables, grains, proteins with a side of dairy. This visual representation helps individuals understand the proportion of each food group they should aim to include with their meals for a balanced diet. I found some simple menus online that just to give some ideas if in case you're not used to doing such things. This would be a simple hiking meal that would be, scout appropriate and fun for them. So just basically like a trail mix wrap. You're taking a whole wheat tortilla, peanut butter, some dried fruit, some kind of nuts if there's no allergies or they can add them themselves or not. Then some shredded carrots and apple slices. And then you could see how it integrates with My Plate. The whole wheat tortilla provides grains, the peanut butter, protein, and fats. Dried fruit and nuts are, add the fruit and protein, shredded carrots and sliced apples or vegetables and fruits. So it's just an easy meal, portable, doesn't really require refrigeration. Then a simple dinner meal that also hits all the nutrition that everybody needs. Campfire veggie bean stew. You don't have to have any meat. Doesn't require refrigeration. Canned black beans, diced tomatoes, corn, bell pepper, garlic, broth, chili powder, salt, pepper. That's one thing that scouts always need to be reminded of is to season their food. It's amazing how many times they could be out making food and nobody will bother to season something with salt. And then if you do, they think you're a legend, they're like, oh my God, this is so amazing because it has salt and pepper. My Plate, you can see the beans were for protein, the tomatoes and corn are vegetables and the grain and, broth adds hydration. You have your chili powder and cumin. You have to be aware that sometimes, chili powder and certain things could have nightshade. So you have to be sure with allergies and such. Different resources. I found a really good one with the Scout Smart, how to plan a patrol camp meal. Really breaks it down into a really long list. And, it's a much easier format to learn this sort of thing, opposed to me talking about it. And then just the dietary guidelines, that everybody, could use to plan these menus to get the proper nutrition. And I think that's it.
Seth, we can actually put those both of those websites on the interim library page,
Okay,
and then send me your presentation. I'll put that out there as well.
okay.
For all the participants, just a reminder that you will be responsible on the outdoor course as patrols to cook your breakfast on Saturday, your dinner on Saturday, your breakfast on Sunday, and then to bring a meal to the luncheon feast that we'll have Sunday afternoon. There are timing pieces for those. I can actually pen. There's timing pieces for those, so definitely you'll have adequate time to cook normal food. I would not plan to have someone back in the campsite trying to do something crazy that's going to take an all day kind of roast or braise,
Hmm.
time. Um, you, as well as feeding everyone in your patrol, you were given $30 to feed 2 members of staff for each one of those meals. The sort of guideline that we've gone with is $5 per meal per kit per scout. Should be adequate enough to cover the meals, give or take. Inflation is out there, but somewhere around that. If again, I'm not telling you that you can't go out and get a nice, thick, juicy steak for everyone in the patrol if you want to. And by all means, if you're going to do thick, juicy steaks and I'm going to come out and eat, that's the meal I want to be at. But it's completely up to all of you. For the feast, I'm still correct in saying, Seth, that it's a Hawaiian themed. It is Hawaiian themed. So your
Yeah.
feast does not have to be Hawaiian themed, but if you would like to try to figure out a dish that you can bring to, so basically the dish that you bring to the feast is not necessarily just for you. It's sort of everyone will be bringing something, and the staff will be bringing some food as well. So there should be enough for a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and hopefully everyone can get a little bit of taste of what you've created. So I would plan on that for everyone, cook enough for your patrol plus maybe 2 or more, depending on what it is that you're doing. Are there any questions for Seth or any questions on the menu or duty roster? I will sit there and ask for the patrol leaders and for the troop guides. We would like to have the menus into the troop scribe, Barbara McQuilkin, at the next Zoom meeting. So Barbara needs to be able to go through it, look at it, and then assign staff members that will be eating with you. But she also needs to make sure that she's not going to accidentally send anyone that's out there that might be allergic to something that you're cooking. So if you can get those to us at the next Zoom meeting, that would be greatly appreciated. Any questions from anybody? I gotta unmute you. Give me a second. Okay, you can ask questions. You're on mute again, Seth. Every time I do that, you're going to go back to mute. Sorry.
It's you.
It is me. Yes. So at this point in time, I'm not getting any questions. I'm going to go ahead and open out some breakout rooms. They are by your patrol. So you can go ahead and select those breakout rooms. In about 10 minutes in, it's going to be a 15-minute session just for you guys to do some planning, sit there and see what you're doing.
Scott has a question.
Scott has a question. Hold on. You have to unmute.
Did it to me again. I just put out a question on the chat board whether Orcomen would be a central place to meet to do the totem swap. It may or may not be, but at least we can start that discussion amongst the patrols. Where would a good place be to do the exchange? I know some people are coming from quite a distance. Hopefully their patrols realize that they might not get the totem, but have fun with them. I've seen some that other people have been working on so far. They look great. I hope everybody's excited for this. It's going to be a really, really great experience when you get there. Very seldom in our adult lives do we get invited to act and behave like teenagers and just really enjoy ourselves. So with the exception of Ryan Dawes, who is a teenager, still, everybody have a great time with this.
Perfect. So again, 15-minute patrol meetings. At 10 minutes, I'll send out a message to let you know that there's 5 minutes left in that. When I actually end the breakout rooms, you will have 1 minute. You can come back to this if there are any questions that came back from your patrol meeting that you need answers for. We'll be hanging out here. And if not, you can just drop off. And then thank you. I do want to thank you all for coming out and spending time with us on your Friday evening. And I hope that everything is going well. And again, if you do have any issues or questions, reach out to your patrol leader or to your troop guide. And I've been communicating with them. I have the stave, and what about meeting at Lowe's? Kim, where's that? So Also, you might want to keep watching the chat as you go as you go along as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording at this point in time and open up your patrol rooms. And again, thank you all.